It started with a plain ticket. A single one-way ticket to Hawaii, printed on glossy paper and tucked into a birthday card that smelled faintly of her perfume. "Happy retirement, Dad," the note said. "You've earned some rest. No worries about expenses, everything's covered. Enjoy the sun for both of us." There was even a little smiley face next to her name, Jessica. My daughter. My only kid. I stared at that card longer than I should have. It was thoughtful, sure, generous, even. But there was something about it that didn't sit right. Jessica wasn't the sentimental type. The last few years had turned her into someone I hardly recognized, always rushing, always working, always in meetings. Calls that used to last an hour now ended with, "Sorry, Dad, can we pick this up later?" And later never came. So, a luxury trip to Hawaii out of nowhere? That was like finding a gold coin in a cup of coffee. Nice surprise, but probably not meant for me. Still, I smiled when I called her. "This is a hell of a gift," I said. "But why one way?" She laughed, too quickly. "Oh, don't worry. I'll book the return when you're ready. I just didn't know how long you'd want to stay. It's flexible, Dad. You deserve some time away." Her voice sounded polished, rehearsed, like she was pitching a product, not talking to her father. I told myself I was overthinking it. After all, she'd covered everything: airfare, hotel, even airport transfers. She'd mentioned a friend of hers would meet me there, help me settle in. It should have felt like a blessing. Instead, it felt like a setup. But after months of isolation and the slow fate of retirement, a free vacation was a hard thing to argue with. I'd been fixing small engines for decades. I wasn't used to leisure. Maybe this was her way of making amends for the distance between us. The flight left on a Thursday morning. I packed light: a couple shirts, a pair of shorts, my old camera, and the paperback I never finished reading. At the airport, I texted her one last time. "Boarding now. Thanks again for this, Jess." No reply. Just those 3 dots that flickered and disappeared. The flight was long but peaceful. I watched clouds drift like mountains below the wings and tried not to think about why I was uneasy. When we landed, a warm wind hit my face, soft, sweet, the kind of air that makes you think the world forgot about pain for a minute. A man was waiting with a sign, "Rick Sanders." Hawaiian shirt, polite smile. "You Mr. Sanders?" "That's me. Welcome to Maui, sir. I'll take you to your villa." Villa. Not hotel. The car ride wound through green cliffs and sapphire ocean. It looked like paradise, the kind that makes you believe in postcards again. But when we stopped, the driver handed me a folder and said, "Everything you need is inside. The property manager will reach out soon." Then he left. Inside the folder were keys, a check-in form, and a small note written in Jessica's handwriting. "Enjoy your stay, Dad. Don't worry about a thing. I've handled all the details. Just relax, okay?" That word, handled, kept echoing in my head. The villa was beautiful but strangely empty. Too big for one person, too quiet for a vacation. On the counter sat a phone, a bottle of wine, and another envelope labeled "Documents. Do not open until Friday." I poured a drink, stepped onto the balcony, and watched the ocean churn under a fading sunset. For a moment, I tried to let go, to imagine this was just love, not logistics. But something inside me kept whispering that this wasn't a gift. It was a transfer. And deep down, I knew, no one sends a man halfway across the world with a one-way ticket unless they're trying to get rid of him. The sound of the ocean was supposed to be peaceful, but that first night, it felt more like a warning, constant, heavy, impossible to ignore. I woke before sunrise, jet lag gnawing at my head. The air smelled like salt and rain. I made coffee in a machine too modern for its own good, then sat at the kitchen island staring at the sealed envelope. Do not open until Friday. It was Thursday. Less than 24 hours to wait, but curiosity's a stubborn thing. Especially when the person asking for patience has already earned your suspicion. I turned the envelope over in my hands, feeling the thickness of the paper inside. No label, no address, no signature. Just my daughter's handwriting. I almost tore it open right there, but instead, I went for a walk. The villa sat near a cliff overlooking the Pacific. Below, the waves hit the rocks in a slow, relentless rhythm. Tourists laughed in the distance, surfboards under their arms, unaware that someone above them was wondering whether his own kid had just sent him to disappear. Back at the villa, I noticed a missed call on the landline. The number wasn't local. When I dialed it back, I got a generic voicemail. "You've reached Pacific Property Holdings. Please leave a message." Property Holdings. I left none. At lunch, a man knocked on the door. Late 30s, tan, slick haircut, the kind that comes with too much sunscreen and not enough honesty. "Mr. Sanders?" "That's me. Hi, I'm Gavin. I manage the property. Jessica said you might have questions about your stay." There it was again, Jessica said. I invited him in, offered coffee, watched his eyes dart around the place like he was taking inventory. "Beautiful villa," he said, smiling too wide. "Jessica really outdid herself." "Yeah," I said. "She tends to do that." He chuckled, then added, "She's a great daughter. Not many people go through this kind of trouble for their parents." "Trouble's the right word," I said. "Tell me, Gavin, how exactly did she pay for this?" He blinked. "Excuse me?" "The trip. The villa. The driver. Everything. How's she affording all this?" He hesitated, then said, "Well, she mentioned some kind of inheritance. Said it was finally cleared and she wanted to treat you." My stomach dropped. "Whose inheritance?" I asked. He looked confused. "Yours, I thought." That's when I knew something was wrong. I didn't have any inheritance. The only money in my name came from a lifetime of honest work, not estates and lawyers. "Thanks, Gavin," I said, forcing a smile. "That'll be all." He nodded, uneasy, and left. The second the door closed, I went for the folder again. Inside was a rental agreement for the villa. My name listed as temporary occupant, but under property owner there it was, Jessica Sanders. My daughter hadn't rented this place for me. She'd bought it, in my name, with funds I didn't have, attached to an account I'd never seen. I sat back, trying to breathe. My heart was beating slow but heavy, like an engine missing its rhythm. There were 3 possible explanations. 1, she'd made a mistake. 2, she was in trouble. 3, or she was setting me up for something bigger. And when you grow up in a world where, trust me, has turned into a trap more than once, you stop betting on coincidences. I opened my laptop. No Wi-Fi. I checked the phone line, dead. The cell signal flickered, then vanished. That's when the sound of a car pulling up made me look outside. Same white SUV that brought me here. The driver stepped out, but this time he wasn't smiling. He walked up to the porch, left a small box on the doormat, and drove off without a word. Inside the box was a prepaid phone and another note, this one printed. "Wait for the call tomorrow at 9 a.m. Do not leave the property." That was it. No signature. No explanation. I stared at the phone for a long time, feeling the kind of stillness that comes before bad weather. It hit me then, this wasn't a vacation. It was an arrangement. And whatever it was, Jessica was knee-deep in it. I poured another cup of coffee, opened the blinds, and watched the horizon turn gold with morning light. Somewhere beyond that ocean, my daughter was probably sleeping soundly, believing I was where she wanted me, far away, quiet, harmless. But she'd forgotten something important. I didn't build my life by waiting to be told what's coming next. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her handwriting. "Enjoy your stay, Dad. Don't worry about a thing." When morning finally came, the ocean looked different. Less like paradise, more like a wall. A beautiful, endless barrier keeping me from whatever truth waited on the other side. The prepaid phone sat on the counter like a loaded gun. I poured myself a cup of coffee and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., it rang. "Mr. Sanders?" a man's voice asked, calm, professional, distant. "This is him. My name's Robert Hale. I'm with Pacific Financial Security. I represent your daughter, Jessica Sanders." Something in my chest tightened. "Go on." "There's been a situation," he continued. "Your daughter authorized a series of asset transfers on your behalf. Several accounts, real estate holdings, and a trust under your name have been frozen pending investigation." "Investigation for what?" I asked. "For fraud." The word hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. "That's impossible," I said. "I don't own any accounts like that. I've never even seen a trust document." "I understand this is upsetting," Hale said smoothly. "But the transactions originated from your identity profile, full name, social security number, and digital authorization. Everything points to you." I stared out at the ocean, the waves suddenly meaningless. "You're saying my own daughter framed me?" "I'm not saying that," he said carefully. "I'm saying your daughter's name appears on several joint documents. If I were you, I'd speak with her immediately. She hasn't returned our calls." He gave me a number, wished me luck, and hung up. For a long time, I didn't move. The ocean kept rolling, indifferent, endless. Then I picked up the phone and dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. "Jess," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Call me back. Now." No response. Hours passed. I walked circles through the villa, from the balcony to the kitchen to the hall and back again. Every detail that had felt suspicious now screamed at me: the prepaid phone, the envelope, the missing Wi-Fi, the inheritance. She'd built the perfect cover story, a loving daughter sending her father on a dream vacation. And while I was out here drinking coffee by the sea, she was back home shifting my name across paperwork I didn't even know existed. I should have been angry, but all I felt was cold. By sunset, I called the number Hale had given me again. It rang twice before someone new picked up. "This is Jessica's assistant," a woman said briskly. "She's unavailable at the moment." "Put her on," I said. "I'm afraid." "Put her on." Silence. Then a shuffle of static. Finally, Jessica's voice, distant, tense. "Dad? What's going on?" "You tell me," I said. "Some guy named Hale called. Says you've been moving money in my name. Says I'm being investigated." "Dad, listen," she said quickly. "It's not what it sounds like. That's what people always say right before it's exactly what it sounds like. I was trying to protect you," she said. "Your retirement fund, the shop, it was all getting swallowed by debt. I used your credentials temporarily. I was going to fix it before anyone noticed." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You used me, Jess. You forged my name. You sent me halfway across the damn ocean so I wouldn't find out. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice cracking. "I just needed time to make it right. By making me the fall guy. Dad, please." But I hung up before she could finish. I stood there, staring at the silent phone, my hand shaking not from anger but disbelief. You raise a child thinking you're teaching them right from wrong. You give them every piece of decency you've got. And somehow, they still learn how to cut you open with your own name. Outside, thunder rolled over the ocean. A storm was coming in, fitting. I poured a glass of bourbon and sat by the window. The villa lights flickered from the wind, and I watched the rain smear across the glass. My daughter had built a trap with my trust. Now she'd have to learn what happens when a man with nothing left decides to take control. I looked down at my call log, the name Jessica Sanders glowing faintly. Then I whispered, "All right, sweetheart. You started this game. Let's see how you handle it when I play back." Rain had the decency to keep it quiet. It pattered on the roof like someone trying not to wake a sleeping house. I sat at the kitchen island, the prepaid phone cold under my hand, and made a list the way I used to when a customer brought in a car that wouldn't start: diagnose, isolate, fix. Step 1. Confirm the problem. Pacific Financial Security said there were transfers in my name. Names on papers. Signatures. Digital authorizations. That's a neat package, impressive on paper, terrifying in practice. But it's still paper. Paper leaves fingerprints. Paper gets traced. A digital signature still sits on a server somewhere, through an IP address or an email account. Everything has a trail. The villa's Wi-Fi was intentionally flaky, which was the first red flag. Whoever set this up didn't want me poking around. Fine. I opened the folder Gavin had left, scanned the documents my hands were finally allowed on, and made a copy with my phone camera. Not elegant, but serviceable. The signature on the transfer forms was mine, or something very close. The dates lined up. Someone had been patient and methodical, someone who knew bones of bureaucracy. I called James. International dialing felt clumsy on a prepaid line, but he picked up after the second ring. Rick? Everything okay? His voice was immediate, the kind of steadiness that makes lawyers useful. Not okay, I said. They've set me up. I'm on an island with a one-way ticket and a folder full of lies. There was a long silence then. Don't you move a muscle. I'll call the bank here, file emergency notices where I can, and get a fraud alert started on anything tied to your identity. Send me pictures of everything, and don't upload them to any unknown cloud. Use the phone camera and email them to my secure address. He gave me instructions, precise, fast, like reading a wiring diagram. I followed them. Next, Kyle. He'd been the one who could find things people wanted buried. I told him to start digging into every transaction that listed my name, but with a twist, follow the money backward and forward. Find who received funds, where they were routed, and which shell entities existed only on paper. Money likes corners, Kyle said. It'll show itself eventually. I liked his phrasing, it sounded mechanical and right. As the calls rolled in, I also rang Gavin. The manager answered on the fourth buzz. Everything okay, Mr. Sanders? He asked. Yes, I said. Do you happen to have CCTV from the driveway from the day I arrived? I didn't need to pretend. I needed facts. He hesitated. I can check. Why? Did you lose something? Not lost, borrowed, I said. Please check and email me what you find. A half hour later, the video arrived, a time-stamped clip showing the driver leaving the box on the mat. Clean hands. No one lingering. It was small, but it was a start. Someone set a chain in motion and didn't want witnesses. Now there was one. Paper and pixels, finally in the same room. We worked the map. James opened a case with a firm that handled identity theft. He filed emergency motions with banks and property registries that would make it legally messy to move anything. I won't pretend the law moves quickly, mostly it doesn't, but a good injunction ties hands, and sometimes that's all you need to stop a bad plan from becoming permanent. Kyle, meanwhile, found a lead I hadn't expected, a consultant firm that had invested. Pacific Property Holdings. 4. Asset coordination? The invoices were odd, payments from accounts linked to companies with names that sounded like seals rather than firms. Then a curious thing, one payment routed through a small credit union in a town 3 hours north of where Jessica worked. Money that disappears into a small bank is easy to hide, but it's also the sort of place where tellers know their customers. Kyle called them and, astonishingly, got through to a clerk. That clerk remembered a woman over the phone authorizing transfers and had the handwriting sample from the teller's logbook. Another fingerprint. Everything felt like turning screws, slow and deliberate. That's the trick. People who act in haste trip over the details. People who plan with patience and paperwork win. I also made one less legal, more human move. I wrote Jessica a letter. Not an angry one, no theatrics. Something almost surgical in its frankness. You used my name. You put me in danger. We'll fix this, but you'll answer for it. Call me, and not off a company line. I left the letter on the counter where she might find it if she ever logged back into the villa account. I wanted the lion open but not the needle in her skin. By the end of the day, the villa felt less like a gilded cage and more like a command post. James had documents in motion, Kyle had a trail to follow, Gavin was, for now, helpful. I'd secured digital copies and seating charts of transactions that read like a map of deceit. The prepaid phone sat beside the pile, an ugly little lifeline. The real work, I told myself, wasn't to smash the game in public and gloat. That was childish. The real work was to make leaving that game, the one Jessica and whoever she trusted, costly. Not for spite, but for clarity. To make sure when the dust settled, she would know what her choices had done. And maybe, if there was room left, be able to rebuild in truth. Night came on like a curtain. Somewhere down the path, a crab scuttled across sand and disappeared under a rock. I thought of my toolbox back home, sockets lined up, grease on knuckles, the slow pleasure of fixing something that's stubborn. Revenge, I'd learned, is just like that, patience, the right tool for the right bolt, and the humility to know when to walk away and when to tighten the wrench. Tomorrow would be quieter than today but meaner in effect. James promised filings that would make signature swaps scream for attention. Kyle promised more people who'd been paid to look the other way, and Gavin said he'd keep an eye on the villa's deliveries. I poured a bourbon, held it up to the light, and whispered to the empty room. "All right, Jess. You wanted this done quietly. So will I." Outside, the stars came out, indifferent and numerous. The ocean kept its long, patient rhythm. Inside, I slept a little, the way a man sleeps who knows the plan and trusts the people who hold the other end of the rope. They say the first domino is always the scariest. Once it drops, you can't unring the noise it makes. I watched it fall slow and steady, and I watched how other pieces shifted in quiet agreement. James worked like a surgeon. By midweek, he'd filed emergency injunctions on any accounts that bore my name and put temporary holds on transfers. It wasn't glamorous. It was paperwork and waiting rooms and polite, patient insistence on phone lines where people had hoped no one would call. But it was effective. A bank that thinks their paperwork might be wrong gets nervous. Nervous banks freeze things while they check their ledgers and lawyers. Then Kyle did what Kyle does best. He went to people who keep their mouths shut for money and reminded them that money disappears faster than reputations. He found a junior accountant at one of the shell firms, a kid who'd taken a job for extra cash and never wanted to be remembered. That kid had records. He had scanned receipts, a spreadsheet with names, and an email chain that traced payments from Jessica's corporate account to a company listed in my name. I remember the moment Kyle called me. His voice was low, tired, and oddly relieved. "He gave us something, Rick. Not everything, but enough to smell the meat. If we press, he'll talk." Press we did. The accountant's statement went to James. James turned it into something the banks couldn't ignore. The accounts were frozen tighter. Pacific Property Holdings found itself with fewer options than it thought. Meanwhile, I started getting calls from people I never expected to hear from. Neighbors of the shell companies, small-town bankers who'd been paid to look the other way. One by one, they told the same story in different accents: small transfers to consultants, odd invoices that never matched work, phone authorizations that used my information but originated from IPs located hundreds of miles away. A pattern emerges when people stop covering for each other. The first public sign came on a Thursday afternoon. I was on the porch when I saw the news feed light up on my phone. Local headlines about suspected identity fraud linked to real estate holdings. There were no pictures of me. The piece was careful, neutral. It said only that authorities were investigating irregular transfers connected to a set of properties and that several accounts had been frozen pending inquiry. I didn't celebrate. It's a strange thing, seeing your name mentioned in newspapers for reasons you haven't chosen. But there was satisfaction, quiet and clean. The trap was collapsing under its own weight. Jessica called that night. Her voice was raw. "Dad," she said, "they're asking questions at the firm. People are coming in from the banks. My phone won't stop. Tell me where you are. I said. It was a reflex. I wanted to find her in the mess she made. At the office. I don't know what to do. Tell the truth. I said, simple as that. Tell them you signed things under pressure. Tell them you did it to protect something. Maybe you meant well. But don't lie. Don't help them bury it deeper. There was a long silence, the kind that presses you hard. I'm scared, Dad. So am I admitted. But fear doesn't help paperwork. She laughed once, the sound like a crack in porcelain. I never thought you'd be the calm one. Neither did I said. Listen, Kyle has people talking. James has filings. You need to step into the sunlight, Jess, or this will look worse than it is. Eventually, she agreed to meet James the next morning. I told her I'd be there, too, though I wasn't sure that made anything better. It was a small attempt at solidarity. At responsibility. At showing up for the mess I hadn't made but would live through with her. When we walked into the small law office, James had a stack of documents so thick it made the receptionist pause. He spoke calmly, citing dates, transaction IDs, IP addresses, an invoice trail that read like an ugly novel. The accountant's testimony was the sharpest blade, concrete, signed, and presented with the kind of clarity you can't fake in a deposition. By midday, an investigator from the county's fraud unit came in. He was polite, efficient, and not impressed by charm. He asked questions about signatures, about where authorization emails came from, and about whether I had personally signed any documents. I told the truth. No, I hadn't. I had been in Maui. I had a plane ticket, timestamps, and the villa's registry. I answered every question slowly and precisely, the way you do when the stakes are too high for theatrics. The investigator left with more papers than he came with. He promised to look into the IP addresses and bank trails Kyle had found. He shook my hand with the kind of grip that says this might take a while. Walking back to my car afterward, I felt a small, improbable lightness. The dominoes were falling in a line we'd put them in, and people who thought themselves clever were discovering they hadn't accounted for every variable. An honest lawyer, a kid with a guilty conscience, a stubborn old man who wouldn't break. It felt like justice dressed in office wear. That night, as I sat on the villa's balcony watching the ocean try to decide whether to be calm or fury, Jessica sent me a text. Thank you? I didn't reply right away. Gratitude without responsibility felt like a bandage over a wound that needed stitches. Instead, I watched the sky go dark and the first stars appear. The night felt broader somehow, like there might be room for repair after all the damage. But I knew better than to assume comfort. This was only the beginning. The dominoes would keep falling, and for each one that landed, there would be consequences to manage, riots of emotion, inconvenient truths, people who would try to run. I had to be ready for every one of them. The next few days tore the mask off everything. What had started as paperwork turned into open rupture, between companies, between people, between father and daughter. It began with a call from James. You need to brace yourself, he said. The auditors found an auxiliary account, set up 6 months ago, registered under your tax ID. The only authorized secondary contact is Jessica. They think she used it to move smaller sums, 5, 10 grand at a time, to cover consulting fees. Classic laundering. I didn't answer right away. I just listened to the rain slide off the gutters. How bad? I asked finally. Enough that she'll be questioned formally. They'll come for a statement tomorrow. Good, I said. Let them. That night, I sat on the porch and replayed every conversation we'd had over the past year. Little red flags that never felt like flags at the time. Her saying, Dad, just sign this so I can expedite the tax transfer. Her sudden obsession with my online banking security. Her assurance that, we'll take care of your retirement plan, when all I'd asked for was help setting up autopay. Every kindness had been a clause in a contract I didn't read. The next morning, the storm moved inland. Whined through palm trees, rain slicing sideways. When it passed, I called Kyle. He was brief. We've traced the shell trail to one guy, name's Lowell Hansen, Corporate lawyer, handles high-risk transfers. Worked with her firm on client confidentiality. He's been moving money for several execs, including Jessica's boss. Your name made the transactions look domestic. So they used me as camouflage, I said. Exactly. They figured a retired mechanic with clean records was the perfect smoke screen. No one audits the honest guy. I closed my eyes, felt the heat climb up the back of my neck. Can you get me proof that her boss was in on it? Kyle hesitated. Maybe. But that's risky. Those kinds of people bite back. Let them try, I said. Just get it. By evening he sent me a single photo, a meeting log from 3 months earlier. My daughter's signature next to Hansen's, approving a transfer. Her boss's initials scribbled at the bottom. That was the nail in the coffin. I forwarded everything to James. Within an hour he called back, whispering the way lawyers whisper when walls have ears. Rick, listen. This is bigger than you think. The DA's office is taking preliminary statements. Your daughter's cooperation could flip the case. She'll cooperate, I said. Or she'll lose what's left of her name. When Jessica finally called, her voice was small, hoarse. Dad, I didn't know they were using your identity. I thought it was a workaround, legal gray area, not fraud. Hansen said it was just an internal transfer to delay taxes. And you believed him, I said flatly. I wanted to, she whispered. The promotion, the bonuses. I just wanted to make you proud. I let that sit in the air. Pride had nothing to do with it. Survival had everything. You've got one chance to make this right, Jess. Go to the investigators before they come to you. Tell them exactly who pushed you into it. Tears, breath, silence. Then, will you still talk to me after? I'll still be your father, I said. But that's all I can promise. The next day, news broke. Not the full scandal yet, just a teaser. Local finance firm under federal review for misappropriation. Names withheld, but insiders always talk. By afternoon, her company's lobby was crawling with reporters. Kyle texted, "They're scrambling." Hansen's disappeared. That night, Jessica called again, calmer this time. I met with the agents, she said. I told them everything. About Hansen, about my boss, about the transfers. They said it helps. But they might still charge me. You did the right thing, I said. The truth's the only currency left. Her voice cracked. They asked why you were in Hawaii? What did you tell them? The truth. That I sent you there so you wouldn't see the paperwork. I said it was the stupidest thing I'd ever done. I wanted to yell. Instead, I just said, it was. After the call, I poured 2 bourbons. One for anger, one for grief. The rain started again, soft but steady. I watched it blur the reflection of the villa's lights against the wet glass and thought about how easily water erases footprints. Maybe this is how families survive, the wrongs washing into memory, leaving faint stains only you can see. When I finally went to bed, sleep didn't come. Too many years of being the dependable man, the one people lean on, had wired me to fix things that shouldn't be fixable. I'd saved broken engines, bent frames, even marriages for friends. But this? A daughter's soul twisted by ambition? There's no manual for that. Dawn came gray and raw. The phone buzzed, a message from James. They've arrested Hansen. Your accounts are safe. One domino more. The first of hers. By the time the headlines hit, the damage was already done. No one reads retractions, but everyone reads scandals. Finance executive Jessica Sanders implicated in identity fraud scheme. That was the one plastered across every news site by Monday morning. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, journalists, lawyers, old acquaintances pretending they cared. I turned it off and stared at the ocean, waves breaking under a sky that looked too calm for what was happening back home. James called first. You're officially cleared, he said, voice bright with exhaustion. The investigators confirmed every signature was forged digitally. They've dropped your name from the case entirely. Good, I said quietly. What about her? He sighed. They're offering a plea deal. She cooperated, gave them everything. Hanson's already talking, and her boss resigned this morning. If the DA plays fair, she'll avoid prison but lose her license. Career's done. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Justice, I said. Not satisfaction. After I hung up, I didn't move for a while. The villa felt smaller somehow, like the walls knew too much. I packed slowly, clothes, the book I never finished, the photo of me and Jess I'd brought just to remind myself there'd been good years. By noon, the driver arrived to take me to the airport. He looked uneasy, like he'd seen the news too. Rough week, sir? He asked. You could say that, I replied. The flight home was long and quiet. I watched the horizon fade through the window and thought about all the tiny choices that stack up into disasters. Not just hers, mine too. All the times I'd chosen comfort over confrontation, silence over truth. When I landed in Austin, the air smelled like dust and redemption. My truck was still where I'd left it, tires half deflated, loyal as ever. I drove home through familiar streets, every stoplight blinking like an old friend waiting to see if I'd changed. The first thing I did when I got home was take down the "for sale" sign from my lawn. Jessica had insisted on putting it there months ago, telling me it was time to downsize. Now I knew what that had really meant: liquidation. I tossed the sign into the garage. Inside, the house smelled like dust and memory. I opened all the windows, let the air move again. The place didn't need much, a man doesn't need much, but it felt good to be home. The phone rang that evening. Unknown number. Dad? Her voice was smaller, fragile, the way it used to sound when she was sick as a kid and didn't want to admit it. I thought you weren't allowed to call, I said. They haven't charged me yet, she whispered. But it's coming. I needed to hear your voice. Silence stretched between us, heavy but familiar. I didn't mean for any of this, she said finally. I thought I could fix it before it broke. I thought I was smarter than the rules. You get that from me, I said. Stubbornness runs deep. She gave a soft, broken laugh. I wish I'd listened to you. So do I. We talked for a while, nothing heavy, just fragments of normal conversation. The weather. Her apartment. My shop. Every word was an apology disguised as small talk. Before we hung up, she said, Dad, are you ashamed of me? I looked around my quiet living room, the same furniture, the same walls that had heard her first words, her teenage arguments, her laughter. No, I said. I'm disappointed. That's worse. But shame? No. That's not how this works. Will you ever forgive me? I already have, I said. Doesn't mean I've forgotten, she cried softly. I love you, Dad. I know, kid, I said. You just got lost. We all do once. After the call ended, I sat there for a long time. The house creaked, the wind pushed against the screen door, and I thought about how forgiveness feels a lot like grief, heavy, quiet, and necessary. The next morning, the reporters came. 2 of them, young and polite, asking if I'd like to share my side. I told them there was no side, only truth. They left disappointed. Later that day, I walked to the garage. The Camaro sat waiting, dusted in gold light from the afternoon sun. I turned the key, and the engine purred like something alive. Driving has always been my way of thinking. The hum of the tires, the rhythm of the road, it untangles things words can't. I took the long route out past the old bridge, through the fields where my daughter used to chase fireflies. The radio played a song I hadn't heard in years. Something about family, forgiveness, and time you can't get back. It hit harder than I expected. By the time I got home, the sun was setting. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat there, eyes closed. Justice had been served, but there's a difference between winning and healing. The law can clear your name. Only time can clear your heart. That night, I left the porch light on. just in case she ever found her way home again. It was almost 2 weeks before she showed up. No phone call, no text, just a car in the driveway and the slow sound of hesitant footsteps on the porch. I'd been sitting by the window, coffee cooling beside me, half listening to the hum of a football game on the radio. The sound of the car door made my chest tighten in that strange mix of hope and dread that only family can cause. Then came the knock. Soft. Familiar. I opened the door, and there she was. Jessica looked older, not in years, but in truth. Her face had lost that boardroom gloss. No makeup, no pretense. Just a woman who'd been emptied out and didn't know what to fill herself with yet. "Hey, Dad," she said. "Hey." We stood there for a moment, the wind between us carrying more words than either of us dared to say. Then I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked in slowly, eyes scanning the room like she was trying to remember how it used to feel. Her old coat still hung by the door. The house smelled like coffee, engine grease, and forgiveness I hadn't decided to give yet. "I didn't know if I should come," she said. "I figured you would," I replied. "Eventually, people always come back to the truth." She nodded, chewing on her lip. "They suspended my license. My company's gone. I've been staying with a friend." "Good," I said. "A little quiet does a person good." She smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't follow. "You must hate me." "Hate's too easy," I said. "What you did took planning. Hating you would take energy I don't have." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "I don't know why I thought I could fix it. Everything I touched just kept breaking." "Because you thought control and care were the same thing," I said. "They're not. One builds walls, the other builds bridges." She sank into the armchair across from me, the same one she used to curl up in when she was a teenager reading magazines and asking about the world. She looked smaller there now, like the chair remembered her better than she remembered herself. "I saw your name in every headline," she said quietly. "Every comment section. People saying things about you, about me, and you didn't fight them. Why? Because you can't argue with mud, Jess. You just wait for the rain to wash it off." She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness." "This isn't kindness," I said. "It's clarity." That broke her. The tears came fast and heavy, shoulders shaking, words tangled in sobs. I didn't move at first. Then I stood, walked to the counter, and poured her a glass of water. Set it down beside her. She looked up, eyes red, voice trembling. "I wanted to make you proud." "You did," I said. "Once. When you were little, and you gave up your allowance to help a classmate buy lunch. When you built a treehouse that leaned like a drunk sailor but didn't fall. You made me proud because you were honest. Not perfect, honest." Her face crumpled. "I lost that somewhere." "Then find it again," I said. "Start small. Tell the truth when it costs you something." She took a deep breath, wiped her cheeks, and managed a shaky smile. "I don't know where to start." "Right here," I said. "Right now." For a long while, we just sat. The house was quiet, except for the faint tick of the clock and the wind rattling the screen door. She looked around again, the framed photos, the grease-stained toolbox, the half-finished crossword on the table. The ordinary things that had survived the chaos. "You never changed anything," she said. "Didn't need to," I replied. "This house doesn't lie." Her laugh was soft, raw. "You're still quoting wisdom like a preacher." "Old habits," I said. "Yours was ignoring them." That got another small smile. She stood, walked to the photo shelf, and picked up the picture of us from years ago. She brushed a finger across the glass. "I used to think you were the strongest man in the world," she said. "I wasn't," I said. "I was just the one who stayed when it got hard." She turned, eyes meeting mine. "You're still here." "I am," I said. "You?" She nodded slowly. "Trying to be." We talked until the coffee turned cold. About little things, the shop, her mother, the weather. Nothing profound, just human. Every sentence was a step towards something that might someday be forgiveness. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. "Do you want me to come by again?" I looked at her, really looked, not the woman who'd made the mess, but the daughter who was trying to clean it. "Yeah," I said. "Next time, don't knock. Just come in." Her eyes glistened, and she nodded. "I love you, Dad." "I know," I said. "Just love yourself enough to mean it this time." When she drove away, I stood on the porch long after her taillights disappeared. The porch light hummed softly. The night smelled like rain and second chances. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a father again. Spring came early that year. You could smell it in the wet soil and the soft hum of insects testing their wings again. The world had gone back to pretending nothing happened, and maybe that was the mercy of it. I saw Jessica every Sunday. It started small, coffee at the diner off 6th Street, where nobody knew our faces. Then longer visits. Some Sundays she'd help me in the garage, handing me wrenches the wrong size just like she did when she was little. We never talked about the case, not directly. The silence around it was deliberate, a mutual pact to move forward without dragging the ghost through the doorway every time. She'd changed. The restless edge was gone. Her sentences had pauses now, real ones, not the kind that wait for applause. She'd taken a bookkeeping job at a small local company. Modest work, but honest. When she told me about it, she said, "It feels good to earn something nobody can take away." I told her that was the smartest thing she'd ever said. The neighbors still whispered sometimes, but I didn't care. Let them. Gossip has a shorter lifespan than truth. One evening, after she'd left, I found myself looking through an old box of photos. One picture caught me, her at 7 years old, holding a wrench too big for her hands, grinning with a missing front tooth. On the back, in her kid handwriting, "Me and Dad fixing the world." I sat there a long while, tracing the faded words with my thumb. Maybe we had fixed a piece of it, not the whole thing, but enough. Enough to start again. She came by the next week with groceries, scolding me for living like a bachelor, and trying to organize my pantry. "Dad, these cans expired in 2019, she said, horrified. "I was saving them for the apocalypse," I replied. "You're ridiculous." "And yet alive," I said. She laughed, real, unguarded laughter that made the house lighter. The kind that fills old spaces with new oxygen. Later that evening, she handed me an envelope. "Don't worry," she said. "No secrets this time." Inside was a single plane ticket. Round trip. Maui. "I thought maybe you should go back," she said. "End things on your own terms." I looked up, surprised. "You want to send me away again?" Her smile was small but sincere. "No. I want you to choose to go." There was nothing manipulative about it, just a gesture. A circle closing. I didn't say yes right away. But I kept the envelope on the kitchen table, unopened, for days. Sometimes, just seeing it there made me think about how far we'd both come. A few weeks later, she joined me for a drive. The sky was clear, blue like it had been scrubbed clean. I let her take the passenger seat, and the Camaro roared to life, proud as ever. As we drove down the highway, she looked out the window and said, "I used to think you were boring." "I was," I said. "I just got more interesting when you realized consequences exist." She grinned. "Fair." We stopped at a diner halfway between nowhere and forgiveness. She ordered pancakes she didn't finish. I drank coffee that tasted like burnt earth and memory. For once, neither of us filled the silence, we just sat in it. "Do you think people change?" she asked suddenly. "No," I said. "But they grow. Growth hurts less." She thought about that, nodded slowly. "I think I'm growing." "I can tell," I said. She reached across the table and took my hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I squeezed her hand once. "That's the job. Doesn't come with retirement." We drove home with the windows down, the air soft and sweet. She fell asleep against the seat, head tilted toward the sun. For a moment, she looked like the kid I used to carry in my arms, same face, same peace. When we got home, she hugged me goodbye, longer this time. No guilt in it, no need for forgiveness. Just love. After she left, I stood on the porch again, envelope in hand. The plane ticket. I thought about Maui, the place that had felt like exile but had turned into clarity. Maybe I would go back, not to relive it, but to stand on the same balcony and watch the same ocean with different eyes. I went inside and set the ticket on my desk. Not a promise, just a possibility. Life doesn't give you clean endings, only chapters that fade quietly into the next. And maybe that's alright. The phone buzzed once, a text from Jessica. Made it home safe. Love you, old man. I smiled. Love you too, kid. The night settled soft around the house. The porch light hummed, the Camaro cooled, and somewhere in the distance, a train passed, steady and unhurried. For the first time in a long while, the world felt balanced again. Not perfect, not healed, but balanced. And that, I thought, is good enough for any ending. The ocean looked different this time. Maybe because I wasn't running from anything anymore. The air smelled like salt and mango, same as before, but now it felt like an old song instead of a warning. I stood on the same cliff where the villa's balcony overlooked the endless blue, the place where the world had first come apart, and now, strangely, it felt like it was knitting itself back together. I hadn't planned to come back. But 3 months after Jessica gave me the ticket, I found myself on the same flight, same route, same seat by the window. I figured maybe it was time to let that chapter rest where it started. The villa was still there, only now it was rented out under a new name. I didn't go inside. I just stood by the gate, the wind tugging at my shirt, and let the memories play without sound. It's funny how time edits pain. What once felt sharp now feels like instruction. Back then, I thought Jessica had sent me here to erase me. Turns out, she'd only managed to give me perspective. I walked down the old path to the shore. The sand was cool, the tide gentle. A group of kids played catch near the water, laughing loud enough to make the world seem decent again. I sat on a rock, watching them, and thought about how easily life rebuilds itself when we let it. There was a letter in my jacket pocket. Her handwriting. She'd given it to me before I left. Dad, it began, if you're reading this, you probably finally took that trip. I wanted you to know that I've been going to therapy. I'm learning how to live without fear of failing you, or anyone. I still make mistakes, but I'm trying to be honest about them. I've learned that forgiveness isn't a moment, it's maintenance. You have to keep tending to it like a garden. I don't expect you to ever forget what I did. I just hope you can look at me one day and see the person who grew from it instead of the one who caused it. Thank you for staying, even when I didn't deserve it. Love always, Jessica. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and tucked it back in my pocket. The edges were already soft from how many times I'd done the same thing on the plane. Behind me, the sun was setting, the same orange fire that had lit the villa's windows the night I'd realized everything had been a lie. But now, the same light didn't burn. It warmed. I walked closer to the tide, shoes sinking into wet sand. For a second, I imagined her standing beside me, the little girl with scraped knees who once said she wanted to fix the world with me. Maybe in a way, she still had. Not by repairing it, but by showing how even broken things can keep turning. I picked up a small shell, smooth and white, and slipped it into my pocket beside her letter. A small souvenir from a place that once felt like exile but had become a monument to endurance. That night, I stayed at a small inn nearby. No luxury, no pretense. Just a clean bed and a window that faced the sea. The owner recognized me from years ago, said he remembered. The quiet American who looked like he'd lost something. I smiled and said, I found it. He didn't ask what. He didn't need to. In the morning, I walked the beach one last time, barefoot, the cool surf curling around my ankles. The horizon stretched out wide and merciful, endless and indifferent, the perfect keeper of secrets. I thought about the strange way life works, how betrayal can become a teacher, and how justice isn't revenge but clarity. The truth doesn't fix everything, it just makes peace possible. When I boarded the flight home, I didn't look back. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I finally could. As the plane lifted through the clouds, Maui shrinking below like a memory being folded away, I took out Jessica's letter one last time and smiled. She was right, forgiveness isn't a one-time act. It's upkeep. It's daily. It's choosing not to let the worst moment define the next one. The sun broke over the wing, gold and endless. I raised my coffee cup in a quiet toast to the life waiting for me on the other side of the ocean. Here's to second chances, I whispered. And for the first time in years, I meant every word. If this story moved you, please support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment with your thoughts. To continue the journey, click the box on the left for the next story. Thank you for being here.